Hey, how's it going? Good to see you. Thank you for joining me. Today I'm going to have a little discussion about the idea of yin and yang. Now, I'm sure that you have seen this symbol representing yin and yang. It's, predominant within this culture, especially since around the 60s. And that symbol is known as the Taijitu. And it basically represents the interplay between opposites. And it's showing us that the interplay is they're not in opposition to each other, but they are complementary to each other. In the shape, in the symbol, you see that there's a white kind of a teardrop shape, and then a black teardrop shape. They're known as fishes. So you could see two fishes lined up together. The black shape represents the yin power, and the white shape represents the yang power. And I'll get into what that means a little bit later on in the discussion. But just to know right now that the yin is the black, the yang is the right. And then if you look also in the shape, you'll see a little dot in each of those symbols. One of those represent, it's obviously the opposite color in each of the fishes in their eyes, or the dots. So that's just telling us that there's no such thing as pure yin, and there's no such thing as pure yang, that inherent within each power, force, or each extreme, each opposite, its opposite is inherent within it. And I'll get into that again a little bit later on, but this is just establishing the main points of the symbol. One other thing to talk about with the symbol is that we see it as a static image, but its intent is to be turning. So we should consider it as a spinning disc. And this really brings to mind the idea that this yin and yang, this shifting of opposites, is an ongoing thing. And it's happening as we speak. It's this continual evolution and cycling. Cycling is a good word, yes. So in the West, if we were to create a symbol like this, we might choose to create it as one white square and one black square. And that those two are completely mutually exclusive, and there is no white in the black or black in the white. And we have a tendency to see things as it's either one way or the other way. And this is the difference between that kind of thinking and this idea, this Taoist sense, that they are represented really in more of it's an interplay, and it's a dance between the opposites, not just you have one or the other. And that interplay is really a joyful thing. And it could almost be seen in a sexual context of this. This sexual dance between these two opposites, or like I said, a dance. It's a dance, this interweaving of these two. Although they remain mutually, exclusive, they have this interplay. If we could imagine the double helix, that strand, that's another kind of a great representation of how the Taijitu could be represented as well. So this Taijitu symbol is known as the symbol of the opposite extremes. And Taiji means the ultimate extreme, or the absolute extreme, supreme extreme. Yeah. So this shape, this image, has an opposite, believe it or not. So the Taijitu has, its opposite is something called the Wuji symbol. And the Wuji symbol is it's usually represented as just like a circular shape, just a line shape. Perhaps it's just a red dot, but it is forgive me for the background noise, but this is my countryside in the city. So anyway, so the opposite of Taiji is Wuji. And Wuji is known as the absolute nothingness, or the extreme, the supreme nothingness. So you have the absolute everything and the absolute nothingness. And just for here, let's say that it's believed that out of Wuji, out of nothingness, came everything, came all these opposites that we see in the world. So out of nothingness came everything. So the nothingness is not just nothingness. The nothingness is the womb for all polarity and duality. So when thinking about the yin and yang symbols, the yin and yang principles, a lot of times in the classics, it's described as a mountain when they think of Taiji as a mountain. On one side of the mountain, you have the sun is shining against the mountain, and the other side, the shadow is being cast on the other side. And the question would be, well, which side of the mountain is the mountain? And obviously the answer is, well, they're both the mountain, but they're just in different forms. So this is really the idea for when we look at really anything, that and the idea of that the opposites are complementary to each other, is that without the one, we would not be able to comprehend or to understand the other one. In the Tao Te Ching, it says that when people see things as being beautiful, ugliness is then created. So we would not understand the idea of ugliness if we didn't have beauty in the world. If we just had beautiful, it would be a pretty boring world, but we would not know that it was beautiful because we have something to compare it against. We have ugliness. And this is really where we start getting into naming, putting categories under this yin and yang. And you can see that with anything. If we didn't have inside, we wouldn't know what outside was. If we didn't have heavy, we wouldn't know what light was. So you see that these two are mutually dependent upon each other. Let's say we had a coin and we had heads and tails on the coin. We don't have to give it any kind of a yin or yang association, but let's just say that we wanted to have a coin that was only heads. How would we do that? Well, we take that coin, we start shaving down the tail side of the coin. Shave it and shave it and shave it, and it keeps getting thinner and thinner and thinner. And then eventually, what's going to happen? The coin will disappear. So you can, because it'll always show heads and tails, no matter how thin it gets. But when that coin is completely eliminated, then you have nothingness again. And this is going back to this idea of Wuji, that out of nothingness, duality is created. And if you take duality down and eliminate it, then you end back with nothingness. So this is kind of the principle. So let's get into talking about giving names to the yin and the yang and what they represent. So the yang is, which is the white side, is most predominantly known as the active agent or the active principle. And yin, the black side, is the passive. And what does that mean? Well, we'll give you some examples to try to help kind of illuminate this. So when we talk about something being yin, we might think of it being as absorbing, that it's like taking in, and then yang is expanding, opening, penetrating. It's moving outwards. We could think of like when there's, they talk about you have the collapse, before you have this great explosion of stars, that a black hole will collapse in on itself and then boom, it explodes out. So this is a great illustration. When everything is being pulled into a single point, this is the yin principle happening, and that eruption and that incredible explosion would be the yang principle. So if we would see the cosmos as this expanding, that we know that the cosmos is expanding in all directions at all times, that this would be the yang principle. It's happening, expanding. If it was moving the other way, contracting and being pulled in, this would be the yin principle. So when we look at things like light and heavy, water and fire, death and life, soft and hard, these are all yin and yang related. And again, you can see how one is not inherently good or inherently bad. They're just two sides of the coin, so it's just a different state of being. And again, getting back to these the square shapes, there's no real moral judgment placed on these two things. There is, when we talk about Taoism, there is an aspect of moralism with that, but it's more with the teachings of Confucius rather than Lao Tzu. This is dealing, usually it's just analyzing things in nature. And again, there's no morality when it comes to nature. A zebra being ripped apart by lions is not morally good or bad. It's awful bad for the zebra, that's for sure, but it's also good for the lions. And so when they are usually representing yin and yang opposition, it's usually done looking at things in nature. So when we think of male and female, the male would be the yang aspect, the yin would be the female aspect. That's been, there's a lot of issues could be raised with that. But we could just say on the sexual organs themselves, for the male, the organs are out. And then for the female, the organs are inside and the womb is concealed. And so, this is more of the idea that the male is the external and then the female is internal. And this internal again would be the yin, and then the external would be the yang. So I think that's kind of given at least a beginning of contemplation that we can start to think and look at things in the world and see them as this revolving cycle. When we could look at, for day and night, right? You just, you can see that spinning symbol. You have day, and if you did not have day, you would not know what night was. If it was constantly dark, we wouldn't have any concept of light or daytime. Same thing with the seasons, that they're continually turning. If we were always in constant winter or always constant summer, we would not have any idea of what the other side was like. Let's talk about now, how is this represented, this notion of yin and yang, how is this represented in our in Tai Chi, when we're doing Tai Chi Ch'uan or Qigong? How does this represent itself in the physical body? So we're going to get into a little bit, I'm going to demonstrate some things too. I want to make one thing clear though before we start. When people talk about Tai Chi, the art of Tai Chi, and this is maybe a little bit nitpicking, but just forgive me, it's not correct to say that, well, I'm learning Tai Chi, because Tai Chi in itself is just a philosophy. It's what we're talking about today. It's the philosophy of these opposites interacting with each other. Tai Chi Ch'uan, that is the art that we learn. That has the forms and all this other stuff. So, and again, as I said before, that Tai Chi Ch'uan, that it was originally created as a fighting style. It's a martial art and an internal martial art that's manipulating our jin, not like a gin and tonic, but the jin, our internal power, to be released through the body. It was originally created as a fighting style. So when that word Tai Chi, it's as I said before, Tai Chi means absolute everything, and then Ch'uan means fist. So Tai Chi Ch'uan is grand or absolute supreme fist, grand ultimate fist. So that's just the difference. When you're hearing Tai Chi, it's a philosophy. Tai Chi Ch'uan is the art that we're learning. So let's go and see what this looks like when we go into the body. Okay. So it's one thing to have a philosophy, and it's another thing to be able to apply that philosophy to our movement and to our bodies. So hopefully this will give us a little bit of understanding. How can we implement this idea, this notion of yin and yang, these opposites, when we're doing our movements and our forms for Taiji as well as for Qigong. So just starting now with the feet, okay? When we shift weight, let's say we shift weight into this leg. So just mirror me. This is my right leg, but just mirror me. So we pour all the weight into this leg, so it becomes super, super heavy. This leg would be known as the yang leg. This other leg would be the yin leg. So this is the white yang leg. This is the yin leg, the black one. Then we shift back. So now this becomes the yang, and this is the yin. And shifting back and forth. This is the spinning symbol of Taijitu. Right. So this is that idea of light and heavy that are in opposition, but also complementary to each other. So one beautiful analogy to this is that you would think about the right leg, the yang leg, the heavy leg, as the parent or the guardian. So this leg is very heavy, it's grounded, it's stable, it's rooted into the ground, and it allows for this leg to be light and to dance and to play and to have fun and do whatever it wants. We could consider this yin leg the child. So shifting the weight over, this again becomes the yang leg, the heavy, and this becomes the light yin leg. Now the yin leg knows that it is able to play, to move lightly and be agile, because it has the heaviness and the weightedness of the adult that's supervising and watching it. So this is the interplay between the two. See, they're not mutually exclusive. One is relying on the other one. Because if we were, let's say we're 70-30 or 60-40 with our weight, it'd be a lot heavier, a lot more difficult to move that leg around. I don't know, maybe this is when they're teenagers or something, that you have a lot more issues going on. No, I'm just kidding. But this is just, it's showing us that this is the complementary elements of these two, which makes it easy to happen. So that's with the legs. Let's talk about with the hands now. A lot of times when something is up, that would be referred to as a yang. Something is moving upward, it's an expression of yang. And something that's moving down is an expression of yin. So once again, this is the Taijitu in motion. Things are moving up and things are moving down. Very good. Yes. Excellent. Both hands could be coming up and both hands coming down. Even the breath can be seen as an expression of yin and yang. You can't have an inhale without an exhale, right? So the inhale, we could see it as this, you're absorbing, you're pulling in the oxygen, you're pulling it into yourself, and then the exhale is the yang, you're releasing, you're penetrating outwards, you're expanding, opening, and then the inhale, drawing in. So this is another representation, yang and yin. And this is definitely mutually dependent upon each other. You have one and you're not going to be around for very long. Okay, so that's another representation of that. You know, all of these you know, light, heavy, they all break down eventually because we're trying to describe the undescribable. And so you can only take it to a certain point. I think male and female is a great example how it has limitations to it. So you want to look at it. There's certain aspects where, yeah, okay, I could see how that could represent yin and yang or light and dark, whatever. But, you know, certain things are, they just, it falls apart after a while because we're trying to express the inexpressible, okay? When we talk about the arms, when we're doing actually with our Tai Chi, here's Peng. Peng is the ultimate expression of yang, the triple yang. Here's the ultimate expression of yin. So when we think of this yang, one way to look at it, if you imagine you had a ball here, like you know, blowing up like a balloon, as that balloon was being blown up, you are expanding and opening. It's not just the hand coming up, but the whole body is opening up. And we want to see that expansion, not only in this area right here, but as if every molecule of your body was expanding as well. So everything is opening up. And this is that allowing for that release of that Jin energy through the body, the internal energy. We're allowing it for that to happen. When we are closing, this is, again, the yang. This is the yin. Everything is collapsing, closing in on itself. So this would be kind of similar to when we're thinking about that, the idea of the black hole coming in on itself and then boom, expanding. Here everything is coming in and then exhaling out. So we can just, in our minds as we're doing just to do this and just to kind of, to ponder and to contemplate this motion. The idea that you're fully engaged in yang, fully engaged in yin. Good. Excellent. Now let's get into the dots, or the eyes. So we know in our shape, we have those two fishes, and then you have a little white dot, a little black dot. How can that be expressed through our movements? Well, this is just one way I'm going to throw out. There's many, many ways of representing this. But let's say we're going back into that Peng. This whole part of my body is penetrating outwards, is expanding outwards, right? This side of my body is being pulled along and pulled along with this yang. So it's almost, if you can imagine, that part of my body is being pulled along by this yang power that's expanding outwards. This part of my hand is penetrating, pushing down. This part of the hand is being pulled down. Does that make sense? So this is, you can't have, if you don't have that, you can't have this, the same thing, both sides. So this is inherently within this motion, yin resides within that motion. Hopefully that makes sense to you. Same thing with the leg, right? When we're pushing out, this whole front of the leg, that's the yang, here's the yin. Yes, very good. So I wanted to show you one of my favorite moves. It's a Qigong move, but I think it really encapsulates what we've been talking about up to this point. What we do is as we inhale, we twist. So I'm twisting my thumbs away from each other, and I'm starting to twist my forearms. And I want you to imagine that your forearms are like a wet towel. So we are squeezing all the water, twisting the water out of the wet towel. So as we inhale, we start to twist up. The shoulders start to twist, the back, and then squinch up the face real tight. Squinch it up. And now exhale, release. Open, open, open. Everything is opening up. Chest is opening up. And now we inhale. We begin to inhale again. Everything is twisting up, twisting, 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 twisting. Very good. And then we exhale. We begin to release the yang. So now when we're going to activate the yin, I want you to imagine all of your focus, everything is collapsing in to where it comes to a single point there at the lower dantian. So imagine it being just the size of a pea, tiny, tiny little point of focus there right at the lower dantian. And then when you exhale, allow that focus just to expand, expand out, 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 out into the universe as far as you can imagine it expanding out. So inhale, here's the yin. Twist up, everything squinch up. Tight, tense, everything, and then release it, exhale out. Very good. Okay, excellent. So I hope this has given you a little bit of understanding how we implement yin and yang into our practice. So great working with you, great talking to you. See you soon. Take care. Bye.